When on the floor, you grasp your opponent's belt to make him bend over. Then, with your arms crossed, grip both lapels to bring him near. Then, standing up on both legs, raise him up at once deftly to the shoulder level. This technique is dangerous if your opponent is dropped after being raised up, so that the effect of the throw was recognized only in 1926. In those days, an ippon was declared when you succeeded in raising your opponent up to the shoulder-high level at one go. But today, the match is suspended with the call of mate. The effect of the technique is not recognized. Hane-goshi is a technique of throwing your opponent by bouncing him up using the movement of your hip and foot. Hane-goshi executed in pursuit. It's made the moment your opponent retreats and brings his left foot down. The leg to be used in bouncing your opponent up should be bent a little. You bounce him up around the lower part of his knee. The technique may be used after guiding your opponent sideways. This is Hane-goshi, where you jump in to execute the technique. Pull your opponent downwards, and when he straightens himself up in reaction, jump in to execute this technique.
Hane-goshi。左足を踏み込ませながら相手を腰に引きつけ右足で跳ね上げます。
In harai-goshi, you pull your opponent close and throw with your hip and legs in a sweeping motion. The nage no kata form is created by pulling your opponent close, by putting a hand under his arm and raising him to destroy his balance. In randori, you seldom put your hand in as shown here. Here the technique is performed by following the motion of your opponent who withdraws. Another chance for using harai-goshi presents itself when you pull your opponent out sideways as shown here. The body movement when executing harai-goshi varies, as when you crisscross and change the position of your feet. For a moment, your opponent mistakes it for a right-hander technique. Then you turn and go into the motion for harai-goshi.
払い腰その1。右手を相手の背に回し、相手の下腹を腰に引きつけ、右足を払い上げながら腰をひねります。払い腰その2。前帯を取り、相手を引きつけ、腰をひねって左に払い上げます。
In Koshi-waza, you grasp your opponent by the neck and throw in a twisting motion with him on your hips. Control your opponent by holding his neck. Place your waist deep under him and push to the side. Koshi-waza must be executed by holding your opponent's neck.
腰車。相手の首を右手で後ろから巻き、深く入れた腰を軸にして水車を回すように倒します。
In all Koshi, you pull your opponent forward with your arm around his waist, then throw on your waist. Move in with your hip low. Make your throw only after your opponent's hip is sufficiently close. With your left hand, pull your opponent out off balance, forward to your left. Bring his waist sufficiently close to place him on your hips. Then, with both elbows outstretched, pull him straight up to throw. With your left hand under your opponent's side, as you come to grapple, pull his waist close and perform ogoshi. Here the opponent's hanegoshi is turned into ogoshi. Pull your opponent's waist close as he attacks with a hanegoshi. Step up close with both your feet and throw using the ogoshi technique. This is not utsurigoshi.
右手を差して相手がつま立つように釣り込み、腰をひねって下からすくい。
There is an application of tsurikomi goshi which is generally called sode tsurikomi goshi. By pulling up your opponent's arm, you destroy his balance. You then have a choice of either taking hold of his sleeve opening like this, or taking hold of the elbow section of his sleeve. When grasping the sleeve opening, you sometimes do so by pushing your opponent's hand away. The throw is made when he comes back with the same hand to grasp your jacket.
飛び腰。相手の跳ね腰に逆らわずに乗りながら相手の腰を後ろに押しやり飛び越して投げます。
In tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt from behind, then bringing him in close, lift and throw on your hip. You must defend against your opponent's tsurikomi-goshi while you grasp his belt from under his arm as you throw. In this form of tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt over his shoulder. Pulling your opponent forward, you grasp his belt over his shoulder and throw using tsurigoshi. Throwing as you grasp the front part of your opponent's belt is also an application of the tsurigoshi technique. It's called a tsurigoshi only when the belt is grasped in making the throw. This is the kata form of tsurikomi-goshi. The moment your opponent protects himself by bending backwards, lower your hips and making them the fulcrum of your throw, pull him down with both your arms. In randori, you pull your opponent up with both arms and throw him on your hips when moving either forwards or backwards. Take firm hold of the rear of your opponent's jacket when he's bent forward in a defensive posture to throw, pulling him up. This is also tsurikomi-goshi. In ukigoshi, you draw your opponent's waist in close using one of your arms, then throw using the twisting motion of your waist. In the practice form, the throw is made as your opponent attacks, as if to strike. In ukigoshi, you throw in a twisting motion after bending back fully, using your left hip as the fulcrum. Your shoulder is placed deep under your opponent's arm, and your arm secures his waist positioned parallel to his belt. Look once again at how you bend your back, how your shoulder should be positioned, and how your waist is twisted.
浮き腰。相手の出鼻を左に回り込んで腰を抱え、前にひねります。
When your opponent attacks with Koshi-waza, you lift your opponent up and throw him down in front of you. This Ushiro-goshi has developed from the opponent's Hane-goshi. Ushiro-goshi executed just as your opponent tries to defend himself by curling his feet around yours. When changing into Ushiro-goshi, your opponent may try defending himself by attacking your foot, as in Ouchigari. You then lift up the foot that's been attacked, hoist him up, then throw him down. This is in case your opponent defends himself using something like Kochigari. If your opponent defends himself by using Kochigari from inside, lift your foot that's been attacked, hoist him up, and throw him down. When your opponent attacks with Osotogari, push his waist up with your leg as you throw him down. Ushiro-goshi resulting from your opponent's Hane-goshi. You can also execute the technique like this without holding your opponent's hip, but simply lifting it up by using your left foot. These different follow-on techniques are all called Ushiro-goshi.
後ろ腰。払い腰を腰を落として防ぎ、そのまま抱え上げて真下に投げ落とします。後ろ車。相手が後ろから抱え上げようとするのを腰を落として逆に引きつけ、相手の腰を跳ね上げます。
Utsuri-goshi is a kind of technique used when your opponent attacks with Koshi-waza, to raise him up and throw him on your hips. This is an Utsuri-goshi technique which originates from the opponent's Hane-goshi. This is Utsuri-goshi, which started out as an uchimata by the opponent. You completely raise your opponent up by the waist and opening outwards, throw after moving him over on your hips. It can also be executed after your opponent attacks with an Osotogari. In this case, you draw your foot a moment before he executes his Osotogari.
写し腰。跳ね腰を跳ね返しながら抱え上げ、素早く腰を打ち返します。